Good evening, traders. It is Tuesday, September 12th, 2023. Let's jump into the market recap and our trading recap for the day. And take a quick look at SPY here right off the bat. So SPY having a little bit of a weak day, not a ton, but down 2.46, down 0.5% on SPY. So SPX down again, $25 on the day, pretty much right at the expected move. If we take a look at the charts here, really what I'm paying attention to more than anything is the weeklies here. And the weekly is just dead flat on the MACD. It's not really dropping like a rock. It's not running up. You've got RSI that was falling, seems to have slowed itself down. So really just sideways consolidation, and you can see this triangle that's forming. You can see it a little bit better on the daily chart here, but you can see this upper and lower end of these triangles, and you're just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. We are going to make a move one way or the other. Now, if we look at the daily chart, you've had, again, this head and shoulders pattern that we've been looking at, still no change in that at this point in time. However, until we head down here to the neckline, about 431, until we get to that point, it's really not really a head and shoulders pattern. It's slowly forming, but I don't think until we've got to get below 440 and more for us to really start to see anything significant. If this continues to march higher, this is just nothing more than a pullback in this uptrend that we've been in since October lows of last year. It's just another pullback, and that's possibly where we are. But the weekly, just kind of flat, moving sideways. The daily, little weak here. We've got a PSAR bearish trend going, but we are really above the 21 EMAs on both the daily and the weekly. And we are above the 50 EMAs on the daily and the weekly. So right now, nothing to be overly concerned about, just the market moving up and down as we prepare for CPI and some other numbers this week. On the Qs, pretty much the exact same scenario. Triangle forming here, getting really tight. The weekly looks a little bit weaker on the MACD. And the daily still a little bit weaker. So techs and Qs here a little weaker, but you're still above the 21 and the 50 EMAs. So nothing to be concerned about until those start to break. And then IWM just continues its sideways movement as well. So this market is in a pretty indecisive mode. However, the weekly, the momentum came off this move. It's pulled back. I think we need to see this MACD moving lower and RSI moving lower, like it is on the daily, for this weekly to get moving to the downside. Right now, you've got a head and shoulders here going. It's a little bit better formed, but we had to get down to this 180 mark and just down slightly on the day. So S&P down 0.5%. The Qs down 1.1%, and IWM basically dead flat on the session. The amount of stocks above their 50-day moving average on the S&P, pretty much unchanged on the session, down a little bit from yesterday, down at some nice lows, which is somewhat bullish. If we take a look at the VIX, really nothing going on here. It's a dead index at 14. The US dollar did gain a fraction today, not a whole lot, but it was up a little bit more in the session. And like every single session, it just never seems to close near its highs or its lows on the day. So it opened up fractionally, moved higher, and then closed just off of those highs. So still with the MACD starting to roll over here, RSI heading a bit lower on these moves. So a little bit bearish on the daily. And if you're looking at the weekly, I'm just strictly looking at MACD and RSI. Both of those starting to roll over a tad this week. Good sign for our Forex trades. And then the fantastic TLT that everyone loves to want to buy. Had a little bit of an update today, so I'm sure everyone will say, this is it. Get long, go crazy. All right, and as we look at the Aussie dollar here on the session, it was down just fractionally on the day. Nothing really major happening because the US dollar was fractionally up. This was just fractionally down. On the weekly, though, MACD might be starting to reverse its downward momentum, but we've seen it before and then it accelerated. RSI did not get to an oversold level, but maybe getting some strength in here. And if we look at the daily charts, does look to be recovering a bit. 6B here, which is your British pound, same type of thing. Here, just down fractionally on the day. On the weekly, it did break the 21 and it's dying to hold on to the 50 here. It looks a bit weaker. MACD continues to drop. RSI continues to drop on the daily and the weekly. Don't really like the British pound. If we take a look at the Canadian dollar, it's had a bit of strength this week so far and really the last 3 trading sessions. So you got MACD rising and breaking above. Well, not the MACD is not above its 0 line, but the histogram is breaking back above. So you got good momentum going into this move higher. RSI climbing to 50. That's a good move. And then the weekly starting to curl. So the Canadian dollar, not a bad spot here. I'm going to look tomorrow to maybe put a credit spread on in this. If we look at the euro, actually fractionally up right now, but on the day itself was down just a tad here. So in the after hours session, it's moving a little bit higher. But again, you look at the dailies, the MACD seems to be reversing. It was not majorly oversold here, but seems to be reversing a bit. So the momentum of this down move might just be slowing. RSI starting to move up. It hasn't really abated on the weekly. It's still pretty strong on this down move, but maybe, just maybe, we're starting to see this thing slow down. But, you know, MACD about to cross the 0 line. So that's a pretty good bearish indicator still. So we'll keep an eye on it. Maybe it just hangs out in here. We did manage to put a trade on today. So we dropped a strangle in 6E on the euro today. Oil on the day, another pretty solid up day on oil. So oil moving up about 1.7%. Oh, not quite 2% on the day. Even though we were starting to tip over on the MACD, we remain strong and overbought on the RSI. So as long as the MACD lines continue to be well above here and RSI is above, we are remaining to be overbought, and we broke above the 3 ATR today. We have been struggling to get through that. We finally popped through it today. We'll see if we pull back some either in after hours trading or tomorrow, or does this thing just continue to march higher? If you look at the weekly, boy, this thing is really strong. And it's just moving right along that Bollinger Band to the upside, getting a bit overdone here. So if you look at the RSI, we are in overbought territory, but we can remain there for a period of time. Gold down a fraction today, gave us a good opportunity to get in on a strangle in gold. I'm going to extend this support line out a bit here that we have, but gold dropped on the session. It's in this descending triangle. It looks fairly weak on not only the daily here, but on the weekly. So don't really like gold in here, but it's really been consolidating in this range for several months since July. So we'll keep an eye on that. And then HE here, if we take a look at live hogs here on HE, or lean hogs, I should say. Lean hogs, we managed to get a trade in here today. We popped a strangle on this, not today, but in the last 4 days, and it looks pretty solid. In fact, my indicators for getting long something when I'm looking at maybe a credit spread or something along those lines is on the weekly, is MACD rising? Yes, it is. So MACD has been rising. Is RSI rising above 50? Yes, it is. Good. That means we are ripe for potentially getting in. So then we can move to the daily to see if the trigger has been hit. Now, we have been moving down on the MACD until today, and now we're starting to rise with RSI rising. So I was looking to put on a credit spread in here today, didn't get it before Lean Hog stopped trading in the afternoon early session. We'll keep an eye on it, see what happens overnight, but I think I may try to put on a credit spread here as well. And I actually looked at a credit spread on nat gas, but it's not really fitting my criteria on the weekly very well. MACD is dropping, but not severely. And RSI is slowly rising. And if we look at the daily chart, you've got MACD rising, RSI rising, breaking above the 50 and 21 today in a pretty tight range. So I think this thing wants to move higher. I was actually looking at a credit spread potentially on nat gas. Quick review of sectors. The tech sector is the hardest hit today, breaking below this triangle. So not a good sign for tech stocks today as you break below this. MACD, RSI falling on the weekly and the daily. Don't like tech in here. And if tech can't get moving back to the upside, neither will the market. XLY dropped on the day about a percentage point. It's still in good looking situation overall, but we'll keep an eye on it. The XLC did also drop on the day about 1% here. It's still hanging in there. So XLK, the weakest of the tech sectors, XLY, XLC, just kind of meandering sideways. And if we take a look at energy, you would assume with tech being down, energy would have a good day, and it did, remaining overbought and moving higher. Good looking weekly and daily momentum. No reason to think that this is running out of steam yet. And then XLF, I really like what we're seeing in here. I would like to see MACD start to head higher before I would get bullish on this thing for anything more than a couple day trade. However, MACD and RSI rising higher and breaking above this downtrend on the daily. So financials looking pretty decent in here, which is keeping the Russell moving higher. And nothing else major except, again, oil, XOP up 2.4%. Everything else relatively calm. KRE, the regional banks, there's nothing tradable in here to the upside at all, but it had a decent day, up about 0.8%. And we'll see. But the daily looking a little better, the weekly pretty weak. All right, there's your markets. I'm not going to get into any individual stocks today. Let's just take a look at our portfolio. So portfolio, where did we end up on the session today? Delta 209, so great flat delta. In fact, in the after hours here is showing 200. So we'll stick with the 209 reading, 0.07. So delta very, very flat, perfect where we like it. Theta 889. So Theta managed to move up. We did put on some trades today. So getting a euro strangle and a gold strangle on the books today was helpful. So that's a pretty good couple trades to get on. So we'll take those two trades. Increased our Theta. Netlick 302,504. So it dropped just a fraction. BP usage 176 on the session. So 176 BP usage, which is 58%. Our bill, we've reduced it back down to avoid getting some of these charges for margin on here that we were getting. So we had a little bit more than we probably should. So our margin interest, we incurred a little bit there. But so we dropped our bill back. We're going to stick to this 10%. This is what we were originally. We were in good shape. We're going to stick here. I'm using $30,000 in margin, which is roughly 10%, which is giving me $119,000 worth of bill, and that'll generate on that $119,000, and we're at about 0.053, so 5.3%, so $6,300 a year on a monthly basis, it should be about $525. So we'll take $525 using roughly 29,700 in margin. So making almost 2% a month on bill on margin. So that's perfectly fine for us. So good day overall. Dropped a fraction on net lick, but Delta, Theta in perfect working condition. Added some Theta with some Strangles today. Net lick is sitting there fine. We are well into a Delta neutral range, which is perfect here. So the market can go up or down either way. We should continue to make money and let our Theta work. And we're in good shape on BP usage. 58% minus the 9. So we're really sitting about 48% BP usage. I think that's fantastic. All right. You guys have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you guys trading in the markets tomorrow. If you like this video, go ahead and click that like button. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We've got some new strategy stuff coming out on credit spreads probably tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. Take care, everybody.